Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture.
And don't forget you can download the news as a podcast by searching for WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. But coming up today, WWE has released Jordan Myles, aka ACH.
I got some backstage updates on Jim Cornette and the NWA.
And a really messy situation is developing in Ring of Honor. This is the news.
So basically, before coming into the studio today, me and Adam Wilborn agreed that every single story on today's news video is going to annoy someone in some way.
Yep.
3 very controversial topics after this one, but even the ratings, even the AEW versus NXT ratings, always seem to piss someone off. So let's just run through this objective data, shall we?
The headline is, the Wednesday Night War is officially over. WWE won, guys.
And that's
a good start, isn't it?
That's why they piss people off. So the numbers are in. NXT, an average of 916,000 across 2 hours. It's up 22% from the previous week's 750k. And also it is the brand's best since the 25th of September when they were running unopposed, of course. AEW is down 893,000 across the 2 hours. That's down from over 900 the week before. It's approximately 8% decline. In the key 18 to 49 demographic, NXT posted a 0.3 rating, AEW still in the lead there at 0.39. In fact, the interesting thing about this rating is that, yes, NXT had the overall viewership, however, AEW won every single demographic apart from the usual 50 plus, which is the one NXT always wins, which had a higher gap than usual at 0.4 rating for NXT versus 0.29 for AEW. So,
in summary, NXT finally beat AEW, and all it took was a go-home show ahead of War Games and Survivor Series, and the promise of almost anyone showing up from Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, I got torn apart for pointing this out on Twitter, and I was, I think it's very smart of WWE to utilize this advantage because guys like Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch are far bigger stars. They are much bigger names than anyone in AEW. So, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, at all. I know, nobody in this room, that's 2 of us, does either. But yeah, it's a smart tactic from WWE. My worry with it will be that Vince McMahon will see this and think, hey, I've got to put Seth Rollins on the show or Roman Reigns on the show or X name every single week, which I think might harm it creatively. But if it leads to bigger ratings, he might go for it. My big hope coming out of all of this is that, say people tuned in, came over and watched because they knew big stars were going to be on it this week. My hope is that they were sufficiently impressed by the native stars, by the Adam Coles, by the Dijakovic's, by the Keith Lees, by everyone else in that brand, that they stick around and that the brand posts a similar number next week.
Look, I don't know how many more times we've got to say this, but you don't have to pick a side in this war. We watch both shows. A lot of people in our office watch both shows and enjoy both shows. We're not sitting there going, yeah, but my show is better this week.
Yeah.
They're both fantastic wrestling shows. Wednesday nights are the best times to be a wrestling fan. The long and short of this is, regardless of NXT beating AEW or AEW beating NXT, 1.9 million people watch wrestling on Wednesday night, which wasn't a typical, Raw or SmackDown. This is great news. Mm-hmm. And the only people who should care about who did better in the ratings, or arguably what the ratings were compared to how good the show was, is if you work on one of these 2 shows, or if you're an advertiser. If not, just enjoy wrestling.
Yeah. I don't understand when people take these things personally. I love looking at them, analysing them, picking them apart, reading the analysis from other people as well. And I love Thursday evenings for that very reason. I sit there and I look at my phone at 9:30 or 9 or whenever they come out, and I love getting that little breakdown of how it's done. But speaking of people who are affiliated with the promotion, Cody had a classy little response here from a Twitter user named Alex, who asked, NXT beat your show. Comments, Cody said, take it on the chin, learn from it, get up off the mat and get to work. Excuses are for assholes.
Yeah, but this is a marathon, not a sprint.
As Chris Jericho said over on the other one. So love that from Cody. Chris Jericho doing a little bit of work there. Cool. Let's see what happens next week. Let's see how NXT maintains that viewership potentially without main roster stars. I hope that both shows just keep moving up because,
I hope both shows have over 1 million viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope they have 5 million viewers somehow. I hope Raw has 7 because ultimately you want every company to do well because it's good for the fans, it's good for the promotions, it's good for the wrestlers, it's good for us as creators as well.
But most importantly of all, I just hope they keep creating a great wrestling product because both shows were fantastic this week yet again.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to the developing story with the wrestler formerly known as Jordan Myles, ACH, of course. Lots of issues surrounding him going public with accusing WWE of releasing a racially insensitive T-shirt. Speculation been swirling around for ages on what was going to happen to him. Then there was a tweet that went out yesterday that he was taking bookings and he was going to be wrestling tonight in Texas. Thankfully, though, everything has been resolved to the best way I suppose it can be, in the fact that WWE has released former now NXT wrestler Jordan Myles, aka ACH. They confirmed it to Pro Wrestling Sheet. Of course, he first signed only in February of this year, winning the NXT Breakout Tournament and having that match against Adam Cole, the championship match against Adam Cole, which was pretty good to be fair. But it seems like this is the best resolution for all parties involved.
Yeah, like no matter where you stand on this matter, no matter what you think of Jordan Myles, how he's conducted himself, the initial row that sparked this thing off, man in the end has gotten exactly what he wanted. He's out of the company. I'm sure he wishes, and like I'm sure his fans and myself and yourself wish that this had not been such a torturous process for him and everyone involved, and that the break was a little bit cleaner, and that he didn't feel compelled to go on social media and air these grievances. Whether you think that was the right approach or the wrong approach, Triple H spoke out and said he thought it was the wrong one. Either way, I'm glad to see him gone.
Yeah.
Like, not from the perspective of like, oh, screw that guy. I just want to see the guy do well. I want to see him happy. I want to see him prosper. It'll be really interesting to see what he does now that he's back on the indie circuit. And I'm sure both parties are very happy that this situation is over, because that T-shirt design was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, most importantly for everyone, I think it's just best if we move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Sever their ties. Fresh start for both. Let's see what Super ACH does now that he's back on the indies.
Best of luck, mate.
Best of luck. Let's move on to another recent wrestling severance. Jim Cornette and the NWA. Of course, everyone has heard the news by now. The remark that he'd made regarding Trevor Murdoch. Really
great to see him wrestling still, by the way.
Big Trev.
Yeah,
He's really
Trev.
embracing his kind of like Dick Murdoch-esque it's not a cosplay, because Trevor Murdoch's actually really, really good, even in 2019. But he looks a lot like Dick Murdoch now as well, especially now that he's bulked up a bit. But anyway, Jim Cornette made putting this lightly, a rather unfortunate remark relating to Mr. Murdoch and his toughness, including a number of stereotypes. This led to his departure from the NWA. It kicked up some controversy online. The NWA edited the line out of the show. Why the hell it wasn't edited out on the first run through, I don't know, but it wasn't. Jim Cornette eventually resigned from the NWA. Now, we got some new details courtesy of Big Daddy Dave in this week's edition. I do this every week. Edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He extrapolates on the matter a little bit. He said that the issue on the NWA side was that Cornette refused to apologise in the aftermath. They took umbrage with that. But there were also a number of other incidents. It's reported that Cornette had been kind of like, he'd riled management up a few times before. He was on thin ice. Management had already spoke to him about a number of other things. This was pretty much last chance saloon. Now, Vice President Dave Lagana, who should have caught this in the first edit, took it on his shoulders. He's taken responsibility and said, yep, that should have been me. But he's placed the blame on tiredness, which I think is kind of weak. Just, if you're going to own something, own it fully. Either way, I think that this whole situation is a shame, right? Because Jim Cornette, right, if you view this channel regularly, you know my thoughts on Jim Cornette as a personality. But the thing about Jim Cornette is, even though he is this lightning rod, he is also a really good performer, and he did bring something to the NWA product. So it's a shame that he keeps getting himself in situations like this where he can't sustain a presence because he said something stupid. It's also a shame for the NWA because Power is a really, really good wrestling show. It's a perfect palate cleanser for everything else in the business, and it has brought this upon it, as touched by champion Nick Aldis on Twitter. I should also mention that the NWA were reportedly a bit upset that Cornette's podcast had seemingly become so anti-AEW because the NWA and AEW share an audience, and having a company mouthpiece express those over-the-top opinions, which is what Dave calls them, is not a good look whatsoever.
Yeah, it's been a horrible week really for all this, and it's a real shame, as you said, most importantly of all for NWA, because It's a great little show.
It is, and you got guys like Nick Aldis and Tim Storm and up-and-comers like Ricky Starks and Aaron Stevens, who's found a career rebirth, James Storm, Eli Drake, all these guys who worked very, very hard to create this really unique wrestling product. It's a niche wrestling product, but it's it's fun, it's got great promos, there's slow burn storylines, there's characters, there's faces, there's heels, there's a unique atmosphere. It's a really cool little show, and coming out of all of this, I reckon that everyone should check that out.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't sound like your cup of tea on paper, check it out, because you might be surprised. You might find some electricity from that.
It's an easy watch.
Yeah, honestly, it's AEW Dynamite is probably my favorite weekly wrestling show, but the show I most look forward to is Power, because it's just so different and so much fun. So coming out of all of this, please check that out. But Jim Cornette is going to address this on his podcast, and that is going to be incendiary today as well. So just choose stuff.
Yes, we'll keep you updated on that. Look, I know Jim Cornette is a divisive figure, but whatever your opinion of, he shouldn't have said what he said, and it shouldn't have been broadcast, and it's probably best that we just move on from this situation as well.
Let's
move on to another messy situation.
Hey!
Jesus. This one going on in Ring of Honor, where it's been suggested that reigning Ring of Honor women's champion, reigning Women of Honor champion, I should say, Kelly Klein, has been released from the promotion whilst suffering from a concussion, dealing with one. Former ROH employee Joey Mercury broke the news on Twitter last night. That's Klein's husband, BJ Whitmer, also a former Ring of Honor wrestler and current AEW producer, then seemingly confirmed it, stating that company COO Joe Koff, and this doesn't help matters either, informed Kelly via email. Now, Ring of Honor have since released the following statement on PW Insider, denying that Klein was fired, saying, "We don't generally discuss personal issues, but they seem to have made it public. We didn't fire Kelly Klein, we just notified her that they would not be renewing her contract."
Ring of Honor are brewing up an almighty storm over the past few months. Joey Mercury, who left the company a few short weeks ago, immediately took to Twitter and fired off all kinds of allegations of misconduct and neglect and all kinds of really damning stuff. And now you get this. After, the criticism that Ring of Honor have received for the promotion and the way they've handled women's wrestling, the Women of Honor division is really not taken good care of by that promotion. They neglect it. They don't really put it in a particularly big spotlight and all this. They position Kelly Klein as a centerpiece. She is a three-time Women of Honor champion. She's the current, if she is indeed still under employ with the company. And then they come around with something like this. A few months ago, they were talking about how they really value every single female talent. That's why they keep the roster so small, because they want to invest so much into these people. And then they do stuff like this. It's a terrible, terrible look. What is going on with Ring of Honor these days, man? It seems like 2 years ago, they were bigger than they've ever been. They were drawing great houses, albeit with the Elite on their cards. They drew their biggest show ever over WrestleMania weekend in Orlando. They were doing great stuff. And now they've just really slid down the bile. Dark days for them, man.
Yeah, it's just a messy situation that is not going to help their already iffy public opinion of them.
Exactly, and on a human level, it's terrible for Kelly Klein. I hope that someone snaps her up, and I hope that she overcomes this concussion soon and is able to prove ROH management wrong, if indeed they did fire her by text.
Indeed. Get well soon. Get well soon, Kelly Klein.
Gross.
Right, let's move on to your Twitter questions. We're going to have more fun with this.
Hey, let's cheer up.
At WhatCulture WWE, if you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Christopher Blade, who says, could we see a heel turn from Hangman Page in the not-so-distant future? He's been a bit of a tweener recently, and while most in AEW seem to follow that form, his departure from the Elite is a bit odd. If so, could we see a heel Page and Skrull team in a few months?
Yep, can definitely see that. They were teasing it recently with Hangman Page when he wasn't showing up to help people with various beatdowns. They did some stuff, they did some spots on Being the Elite. Page has been a bit more of a badass lately. He's been a bit more assertive. He's been a bit more vicious, a bit more aggressive in his matches. Really, really good stuff from him, turning the corner after that failed world title program. And yeah, Skrull coming in, I think for me, the natural direction for Skrull is to oppose the Elite, because they didn't turn up for his party last year and instead launched their promotion. So yeah, I think it's good booking all around.
Yeah, exactly. I really want to see Hangman Page versus Jungle Boy as well.
Oh man,
that was teased on
wasn't
Dynamite. More of that, please.
Kind of looks similar as well.
Yeah, they do. I love Jungle Boy. Right, second question today comes from Adnan, who says Balor versus Riddle will probably steal the match of the weekend. However, it is the most predictable outcome, as Balor can't lose. Yeah, fair enough. Which leaves Riddle in a weird spot in NXT, losing to Cole and then to Balor. What is next for him? Raw and Lesnar? Question mark.
I love Matt Riddle, but I don't see him getting pushed straight to the top with a big world title program on the main roster. I think he's kind of in the spot, ironically, similar to Balor when he lost the belt in NXT, and it was just kind of like, where do I go from here? He ended up facing Nakamura and moving up. I think we might see Riddle go up to the top because he's had the title shot. He couldn't beat Adam Cole in that really, really fun, exciting match on NXT TV.
And that title's going to swirl around Balor and Ciampa and Cole, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a little tandem there. Yeah, I think he's moving up. I just don't think it'll be straight into a world title program. I think he'll feud with someone like, I don't know, No Way Jose. Maybe not No Way Jose, but you know what I mean.
It's interesting this because there's so many dream matches you think of with Matt Riddle, and we were debating the other day about, we reported yesterday, I should even say, about Roman Reigns potentially facing The Fiend at WrestleMania, which would leave Brock Lesnar without an opponent. And if Roman Reigns isn't the guy to win the Royal Rumble, a shock number 30 or whatever number you want to give him. Oh, you can't do 420, can you? But anyway, 24 and then... No, it doesn't really work. But anyway, a shock entrance from Riddle and him winning the Rumble to then challenge Lesnar at WrestleMania. I would love it. I don't think it's going to happen.
I've got the solution. A 420-man Royal Rumble.
How could the biggest one ever?
9 hours long.
Right, final question today comes from Jim Shepherd, who says, with no appearance by Velveteen Dream last night on NXT, what are the chances that he's the final member of the face team for War Games? Give me 50 quid.
I think it depends on how his injury is recovered and so forth. But yeah, I think he's probably the natural choice. I think Triple H would just, no, I don't do that as the mystery man. Kevin Owens would be a good shout as well. But yeah, no, I think there's a good chance for Dream. All depends on the injury, like we said. But it would be very exciting, and I'd love to see him do his thing on a main roster pay-per-view, just to see how his act translates to a bigger room. I think very well.
I would love to see it. I'd love a appearance from Velveteen Dream in War Games. I think it'd be intriguing to see what they do with him. And yeah, we did a podcast yesterday, myself and the Dudley Boys, now available at WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, previewing War Games. And we speculated about who that extra person could be. Could be Velveteen Dream, could be Kevin Owens, could just be someone like Isaiah Swerve Scott. I hope it's not. Let's kind of throw him under the bus if they do it on the 9. It's just him.
It's Tainara.
But yeah, I'd love it to be Velveteen Dream, and it would make sense because then you could argue that the 4 men in the War Games match could fight against each for the Undisputed Era for all of their championships again.
Absolutely.
Right, let's move on to today's, and finally, and you probably saw this doing the rounds yesterday, it is official. It was tweeted by the Wrestling Resolver, signed for the 4th of April 2020, Pancakes and Pile Drivers 4 at WrestleCon at the Ritz in Ybor City, I'm going to go with.
Ybor, that's right.
1 year in the making. Sami Callihan versus our very own Simon Miller in a WhatCulture death match.
Simon Miller's going to use that little squirt for a toothpick, isn't he?
I can't wait. He's going to snap him in two.
What's the stipulation? What's that? Are we weapons?
We can't. We know. Obviously, we know. Obviously, we know. But we're not going to give it away because I don't want to give Sami Callihan any advance warning. But I did tweet Simon last night about this, and he did say, "Can we be there for a run-in?" So we'll see you there.
Yeah, Solomon Crow's going down.
See you there, Sammy.
Worse than his NXT career.
All right, let us know your thoughts on that and all of those news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Plus, let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. While you're there, follow both of us. You can follow him at...
Before I do my usual plug, shout-outs to my friends in Crowhurst. Check them out if you like your music very, very noisy. Anyway, you can follow me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hakiokata. Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Hakiotaha, which apparently, according to the internet, is a noise you make while mimicking a pig. So...
how do I follow that? You can follow me at Adam Wilmot. Shout out to Dan Lasack and Scroobius Pip for this t-shirt. You can follow us all at WhatCulture WWE. My thanks, Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.